The text message arrived at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. 3 words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about family. You're banned useless. That was it. No explanation, no context, just my mother's name at the top of the screen and those 3 words glowing in the dark of my minimalist apartment. I stared at my phone, then at my laptop where 6 browser tabs were already open, my finger hovering over the mouse. Behind me, the kettle whistled. In front of me, a spreadsheet showed every automatic payment that had my name on it. Every bill, every subscription, every debt that somehow became mine to carry. The mortgage that wasn't mine. The internet that wasn't for me. The phone plan that served 6 people while I paid for all of them. 87 missed calls would come later that night. But right now, in this moment, I had a decision to make. And I made it in less than 60 seconds. If you've ever been the family ATM, the forgotten daughter, or the one who pays while everyone else plays, you need to hear this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment about your own experience because what happened next changed everything. But first, let me take you back to where this really began. I'm Aurora Vance, 28 years old, financial analyst at Northwest Capital. People at work call me brilliant, meticulous, cold even. They have no idea that every night I go home and recalculate the cost of love. My apartment reflects everything I value in numbers, but not in life. Clean lines, minimal furniture, a laptop on a glass desk, a single plant that somehow survives despite my neglect, everything in its place except me. The relationship with my family wasn't always openly toxic. It started small like most financial abuse does. A phone bill here, an internet payment there. My mother Elaine had a particular gift for making requests sound like emergencies and gratitude sound like obligation. She never asked. She informed. She never thanked. She reminded me that family takes care of family. My father Robert was different, gentle, weak, the kind of man who meant well but never stood up when it mattered. He was her accomplice through passivity. But the real architect of my financial ruin was my cousin, Leo Thorne, 30-year-old golden child, the grandson my mother never had. Leo sold himself as a sales superstar, always posting on social media about his luxury lifestyle, his beautiful girlfriend Tiffany, his thriving business ventures. What he actually was, I would discover, was a professional liar who turned my bank account into his personal funding source. It started 3 years ago when my mother called about the mortgage. Dad had co-signed on a house they couldn't quite afford and they needed someone with good credit to help restructure the loan. Just temporarily. Just until they got back on their feet. I was 25, proud of my credit score, eager to prove I was a good daughter. I signed the papers without reading them carefully. That was mistake number 1. Then came the T-Mobile family plan. 6 lines. Leo needed a phone for his business. My Aunt Brenda needed to stay connected. My Uncle Frank's old phone was dying. It made sense to bundle everything save money. I'd be the primary account holder because I had the best credit, but everyone would Venmo me their share. That was the promise. The Venmo payments stopped after 2 months. The excuses never did. The gas card came next, then the electric bill, then the internet. Each time my mother had a reason. Dad had unexpected medical expenses. Aunt Brenda's hours got cut. Leo was between commission checks. Every request came with a crisis. Every crisis came with my credit card number. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself it was family. I told myself I was being a good daughter. What I didn't tell myself was the truth. I was being used. The breaking point had been building for months, but I was too busy working overtime to pay everyone else's bills to notice. Leo's Instagram posts got more extravagant. Designer clothes, expensive restaurants, weekend trips with Tiffany to places I couldn't afford despite making twice his supposed income. Meanwhile, I was eating meal-prepped chicken and rice, skipping happy hours with coworkers, and watching my savings account bleed out at an alarming rate. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, I received a collections notice. Builder Supply Depot was demanding $2,300 for materials I never purchased. The account was opened in my name 2 years ago. The signature looked almost like mine, but the handwriting belonged to my mother. I would recognize her loops anywhere. My hands shook as I held that paper, not from fear, from rage. I started pulling records, Bank statements, credit reports, phone bills. What I found made my blood run cold. The T-Mobile account wasn't just for phone calls. Leo had an iPad Pro on the plan burning through 40 gigabytes of data every month. The usage logs showed activity from 9 to 5 on weekdays, pinging from his luxury apartment building downtown. He was using my data plan to run his business, whatever that actually was. The electric bill had a mysterious surcharge I'd been paying for 8 months. $45 monthly for something coded as Hydra Equipment Surcharge. I Googled the code. It was a fee for 220-volt welding equipment. I remembered then Leo's social media posts about his side hustle building custom bicycle frames in my parents' garage. He was running a business on my electric bill. The mortgage was the worst. I'd been paying $1,400 monthly for 18 months. $25,200 for a house I didn't live in, for a house I'd never inherit. I pulled up the mortgage account and discovered something that made my stomach turn. The primary email for receiving payment notices wasn't my parents' address or mine. It was familyproxyfunds@gmail.com, a burner email account. Someone had deliberately routed the overdue notices away from everyone who might actually see them. Someone was hiding the truth about missed payments. Someone named Leo. I sat in my apartment that Tuesday evening, surrounded by evidence of betrayal. Spreadsheets covered my coffee table. Printed bank statements formed neat stacks on my desk. I had built a case against my own family, and the numbers didn't lie. They never do. I had spent $73,000 on them over 3 years. $73,000 while being called selfish for not visiting more, for not being more available, for not giving more. That's when the text message arrived. "You're banned useless." I read it 3 times. Each time something inside me calcified a little more. The soft parts turned hard. The forgiving parts turned cold. The daughter turned into an analyst. I opened my banking app and looked at the autopay list. 6 automatic payments. 6 lifelines I'd been providing to people who saw me as an ATM with a heartbeat. My finger moved without hesitation. Click. Delete payment method. Click. Confirm cancellation. Click. Transfer account ownership. Click. Remove authorized user. Each action took less than 10 seconds. Each action felt like peeling off someone else's skin and finally finding my own underneath. The T-Mobile account. Gone. The electric bill. Transferred. The internet. Canceled. The gas card. Reported as stolen. The mortgage payment, the big one scheduled for Thursday, the 1st of the month. Deleted. A red warning flashed on screen. Payment due in 3 days. Canceling may result in late fees. I smiled. Not a happy smile. A sharp one. A smile that would have made my coworkers at Northwest nervous. I clicked confirm. Then I did something I'd never done before. I blocked my mother's number from leaving voicemails. I muted her text notifications. I didn't block her completely. That would have been mercy. I wanted her to see that I was reading her messages and choosing not to respond. I wanted her to know I was on the other side of that silence. The phone started ringing at 8:52 p.m. My father, declined. My mother, declined. Aunt Brenda, declined. The calls kept coming. I watched them roll in like a tsunami of consequences. 5 calls, 10 calls, 20 calls. I sat on my minimalist couch in my minimalist apartment and ate leftover chicken while my phone vibrated itself across the coffee table. At 9:02 p.m., the email from the mortgage company arrived. Automatic payment of $1,400 has been canceled per your request. Your payment is now overdue. Please submit payment immediately to avoid foreclosure proceedings. I forwarded it to my father with one line. You're welcome for the last 18 months. This one's on you. At 9:47 p.m., Leo posted to Instagram a photo of the Thanksgiving table loaded with food I hadn't been invited to share. The caption read, "Loyalty can't be bought. Real family doesn't send invoices." The hypocrisy was so thick I could taste it through the screen. This man, this parasite, was lecturing about loyalty while running his business on my electric bill and his iPad on my data plan. I took a screenshot, added it to my growing file. Evidence. By 11 p.m., the missed calls had reached 43. I had received 67 text messages. Not one apology. Every message was some variation of confusion, anger, or demands for explanation. My mother's were the worst. What did you do? The internet is out. Fix this now. You're being childish. This is abuse. That last one almost made me laugh. Almost. At 11:59 p.m., I performed the final amputation. I logged into the mortgage account one last time and removed myself as an authorized user. A pop-up appeared. Are you sure this action cannot be undone? You will no longer have access to this account or be able to make payments on behalf of the primary borrower. I clicked yes so hard I nearly cracked my laptop screen. Thanksgiving morning, I woke up to 87 missed calls. I made myself coffee, scrambled 2 eggs, and ate breakfast while watching my phone light up like a Christmas tree. The calls had started at 6 a.m. and hadn't stopped. I imagined the scene at my parents' house. The cold realization that the internet was really gone, that the phone plan had really changed, that the automatic payment had really been canceled. I imagined my mother's face when she tried to call me and realized I wasn't answering. I imagined Leo trying to use his iPad and seeing the service suspended message. I spent Thanksgiving alone. I roasted a small chicken breast, made mashed potatoes from a box, and watched movies I'd been too busy to see. Every 20 minutes, my phone buzzed with a new message. My father's were almost sad. Isa, please call us. We need to talk. Something's wrong with all the accounts. My mother's were increasingly frantic. You need to fix this now. This is criminal. You're destroying this family. Aunt Brenda sent me a photo of herself at a gas station holding a fuel pump, her face pale. My card was declined. I'm stranded. How could you do this to me? The only message I responded to was my father's last one. Isa, there's leftovers for you on the porch. We miss you. I texted back 3 words. I saw them. I didn't say I wouldn't be picking them up. I didn't say I'd seen the Instagram post about the perfect family Thanksgiving. I didn't need to say anything else. The message was clear. I wasn't coming to collect scraps anymore. The following Friday morning, I took a personal day from work. I met my manager, Marisol Vega, at a coffee shop downtown. Marisol was in her 50s, sharp as a blade with gray hair she wore like a crown, and eyes that could audit your soul. She had mentored me since I joined Northwest, teaching me that numbers don't just tell you what happened. They tell you what people wanted to hide. I brought the evidence, a white 3-ring binder I'd labeled documentation. Inside were printed bank statements, highlighted autopay records, the fraudulent builder supply invoice, the T-Mobile usage logs, the electric bill with the welding surcharge, screenshots of Leo's Instagram posts about his thriving business, and the text message that started it all. You're banned useless. Marisol didn't even touch her coffee. She flipped through the pages in silence, her expression growing harder with each one. When she reached the mortgage payment history showing $25, $200 paid over 18 months, she closed the binder and looked at me with something that might have been respect or might have been fury. You've been misclassified, she said flatly. You're not their daughter. You're accounts payable. You're infrastructure. They've been running a household on your balance sheet, and now you've pulled the funding. I explained what I'd done on Tuesday night. The canceled payments, the transferred accounts, the deleted autopay schedules. Marisol nodded slowly. That's stage 1. That's the panic response. It stops the bleeding, but now you need process. You need documentation. You need to lawyer-proof this. She took out a pen and drew 3 columns on a napkin: legal, technical, communication. Under legal, she wrote fraud report, credit freeze, identity theft documentation. Under technical, she wrote password changes, 2-factor authentication, account separations. Under communication, she wrote paper trail, certified mail, no phone calls. They're going to escalate, Marisol said. They're going to beg, then threaten, then beg again. You need to be 3 steps ahead. Document everything. Record everything where legal. Never, ever engage emotionally. You're an analyst now. Treat them like a bad investment you're divesting from. Over the next 72 hours, I executed Marisol's plan with surgical precision. I froze my credit at all 3 bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. I placed a 90-day fraud alert. I filed a report with the FTC about the builder supply debt, which required me to acknowledge that someone in my family had likely committed identity theft. The form asked for the suspected perpetrator's name. I typed my mother's name. My hands didn't even shake. I changed every password on every financial account I owned: banking, investment accounts, my 401k, credit cards. I set security questions with answers that had nothing to do with my real life. Mother's maiden name. I chose a random name from a book on my shelf. First pet's name, I made one up. I enabled two-factor authentication on everything. I was building a fortress and my family was on the outside. The utility transfers were more complicated. I called the electric company and explained that I needed to remove myself from the account. The customer service representative, a woman named Diane, sounded confused. "Ma'am, you're listed as the primary account holder. If you remove yourself, service will be disconnected unless someone else takes over." I gave her my father's information and said he would call to establish a new account in his name. Diane informed me that would require a $400 security deposit due to his credit score. "That's between him and your company," I said. "Effective Sunday at 11:59 p.m., I am no longer responsible for that address." The T-Mobile separation was the most satisfying. I went to a store across town where no one knew me. I ported my number out of the family plan and onto an individual account, the cheapest plan they offered. Then I asked the representative to add a security note to the old family account. Any changes would require physical ID verification and in-person authorization. "Is someone trying to steal your service?" the rep asked. "Yes," I said. "Family members." She nodded like she'd heard it 1,000 times. The gas card cancellation was brutal efficiency. I reported my Aunt Brenda's supplementary card as stolen. I disputed the last 6 months of charges as potentially fraudulent. The credit card company's fraud department called me within 2 hours. I calmly explained that I had never authorized those transactions, that the card had been given to a family member without my permission, and that I wanted all charges investigated. The representative sounded almost gleeful. "We take fraud very seriously, Ms. Vance. We'll be opening an investigation." I knew what that meant. Brenda would get a call. She would panic. She would call my mother. Good. By Sunday evening, I had prepared 2 emails, one to my parents about the utility transfers, one to the entire family about the T-Mobile change. Both were professional, emotionless, and devastating. I scheduled them to send Monday morning at 9 a.m. after everything had officially transferred or disconnected. The subject lines were identical. Account transition notification. I also prepared what Marisol had called my severance package, a second binder thinner than the first, containing step-by-step instructions for setting up utilities, managing automatic payments, and budgeting for actual expenses. I'd included templates for budget spreadsheets, contact information for each service provider, a guide to setting up online bill pay. It was everything they needed to function as independent adults. Everything I'd been doing for them without acknowledgement or appreciation for 3 years. I labeled it Financial Independence Guide and left it in my car. I wasn't sure yet if I'd deliver it. The real revelation came Monday morning when I started digging deeper into the paper trail. I requested detailed documentation from T-Mobile, every authorization form, every account change for the past 3 years. What came back made my vision go red. 2 years ago, someone had submitted a form adding Leo as an authorized user on my account, allowing him to add lines and make changes. The form required my signature. I studied the scanned copy they emailed me. The signature read, "Issa Thomas," in handwriting I would know anywhere, my mother's handwriting. She had forged my signature to give Leo access to my account. I forwarded the document to Experian with a fraud claim. They responded within 6 hours. "We have reviewed your submission and found indicators consistent with signature forgery. This matter has been escalated to our fraud investigation unit. You may be contacted by law enforcement." I took a screenshot and added it to the evidence binder. My mother had committed a federal crime. Multiple federal crimes, actually. The builder supply fraud, the T-Mobile forgery, possibly more I hadn't discovered yet. The mortgage email account that Family Proxy Fund's address haunted me. Who set it up? Who was checking it? I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I tried to log into it using common password combinations. On the 7th try, I got in. The password was Leo's birthday. The inbox was a horror show. 17 overdue payment notices from the mortgage company going back 9 months, threatening letters about foreclosure, payment extension requests submitted in my parents' names, always promising that the situation was temporary, that family was helping. The most recent email from last week warned that the next missed payment would trigger foreclosure proceedings. Leo had been intercepting these emails for months. He had been watching my parents slide toward losing their house and had done nothing except use the crisis to extract more money from me. The mortgage company thought I was still paying. My parents thought everything was fine. And Leo was playing both sides, pocketing money meant for house payments, knowing I would keep covering the difference because I didn't know there was a difference to cover. I screenshot everything, downloaded the entire email archive, added it to the legal file. Then I changed the password to something Leo would never guess and added my parents' real email address to receive all future notifications. Let them see what he'd been hiding. Let them understand who the real villain was. But I wasn't done. I filed a report with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau about the mortgage servicer's failure to notify all account holders about overdue payments. I filed a complaint with the FTC about the identity theft. I documented everything in my action log: date, time, reference numbers, names of representatives I spoke with. I was building a paper fortress, and anyone who tried to attack me would find themselves buried in documentation. Tuesday morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my father. His voice sounded destroyed. "Issa, we need to talk. Today. Please. I'm begging you. Something is very wrong, and I think we've been lied to." There was something different in his tone. Not anger, not entitlement. Fear, and maybe finally the beginning of understanding. I texted back one sentence. "I'll come by at noon. Bring the Thanksgiving leftovers. I'm sure they're still good." The drive to my childhood home felt like traveling to a crime scene. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling, the lawn needed mowing, the whole place had an air of neglect that I'd somehow never noticed before. Or maybe I'd been too busy paying their bills to see how they actually lived. I parked in the driveway and grabbed both binders from my back seat. Evidence and instructions. Prosecution and mercy. I didn't know which one I'd end up using. Maybe both. My father opened the door before I could knock. He looked 10 years older than he had at Thanksgiving. His eyes were red. His shirt was wrinkled. He'd always been the soft one, the gentle one, but right now he just looked broken. "Issa," he said, and his voice cracked on my name. I walked past him into the kitchen. The fluorescent light above the table flickered and buzzed. It had been doing that for 2 years. I'd offered to pay to fix it. They said it was fine. Now it felt like a metaphor. Everything in this house was broken, and nobody wanted to fix it as long as someone else was paying to keep the lights on at all. My mother sat at the kitchen table, her spine rigid, her face set in defensive anger. She didn't greet me, didn't apologize, just stared at me like I was the criminal. The styrofoam containers from Thanksgiving sat on the counter unopened. They'd never intended for me to have them. It was all performance. I didn't sit. I stood at the head of the table and placed the evidence binder down with a heavy thud that echoed in the quiet room. "We need to talk about money," I said, "and fraud, and the fact that you've been using me as a bank for 3 years while calling me useless." My father flinched. My mother's jaw tightened. "You had no right to cut everything off like that," she started. "We're your family." "Stop!" My voice came out harder than I'd ever heard it. "You're going to listen. You're going to listen to every word, and then you're going to decide what kind of people you want to be." I opened the binder to the first page. The mortgage payment history. 18 months of $1,400 payments, all from my account, highlighted in yellow. I paid $25,000 on a house I don't live in, a house I'll never inherit, a house you never once thanked me for saving. I pushed the paper across the table. My father picked it up with shaking hands. The color drained from his face. "You asked for temporary help," I continued. "That was 3 years ago. When does temporary end? When I'm 40, when I'm broke, when I've given you everything and have nothing left for myself." I flipped to the next section, the T-Mobile bill with Leo's iPad usage highlighted. 40 gigabytes a month from his apartment during business hours. Leo has been running his business on my data plan while posting on Instagram about how successful he is. I pulled out my phone and showed them his posts. The designer clothes, the expensive dinners, the girlfriend dripping in jewelry. Where do you think this money comes from? His successful sales career, he's a fraud, and you enabled him. My mother opened her mouth to argue. I cut her off with the electric bill. $45 a month in welding equipment fees for Leo's bicycle frame business in your garage. I've been paying for him to run a business out of your house while you banned me from Thanksgiving. My father's hands were shaking now. He looked at my mother, and for the first time I saw something crack in his expression. Not anger, realization. "Elaine," he whispered, "what did we do?" But I wasn't finished. I pulled out the big one, the T-Mobile authorization form with the forged signature. I placed it directly in front of my mother. "This is your handwriting. You forged my signature. You committed identity theft. That's a federal crime." The room went silent except for the buzzing fluorescent light. My mother's face went from red to white. "It was just to help Leo get on the plane," she said weakly. "You wouldn't have minded." "I would have minded," I said, my voice ice. "That's why you didn't ask. That's why you forged it, because you knew I'd say no." I pulled out the final piece, the email from Experian confirming their fraud investigation. They're investigating. They've confirmed the signature was forged. They've reported it to the credit bureaus and possibly to law enforcement. You could face charges for helping your nephew steal from your daughter. My father made a sound like he'd been punched. My mother just stared at the paper like it might explode. The doorbell rang. We all jumped. My mother started to stand. "That's probably Leo," I said. "I told him to be here. He needs to hear this too." My mother looked like she might throw up. My father went to answer the door. I heard Leo's voice before I saw him loud and aggressive. "Where is she? What lies is she telling you?" He strutted into the kitchen wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. His eyes locked on mine with pure fury. "You're pathetic, Issa. You know that cutting everyone off on Thanksgiving because you're mad about what phone bills grow up." I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Sit down, Leo." "I'll stand." "Suit yourself." I pulled out a separate section of the binder I'd prepared just for him. "Let's talk about your business, your thriving sales career, your luxury lifestyle." I laid out the evidence piece by piece. The electric bills showing his welding equipment charges, the T-Mobile data logs, screenshots of his Instagram posts time-stamped against the data usage, and the final bomb, the mortgage email account. "You set up family proxy funds at gmail.com to intercept mortgage notices. You watched Grandma and Grandpa slide toward foreclosure for 9 months while you used their crisis to squeeze more money out of me. You're not a successful businessman, Leo. You're a con artist, and you used your own family as marks." Leo's face went through several shades of red. "That's not true. You're lying." "Am I?" I pulled out my laptop and turned it to face him. I'd logged into the email account. "Want to explain these 17 overdue notices. Want to explain why you changed the password to your birthday. Want to explain why you submitted payment extension requests in their names without telling them." My father made a strangled sound. My mother grabbed the laptop and started scrolling through the emails. With each one, her face got paler. Leo started backing toward the door. "This is insane. You broke into an email account. That's illegal." "So is forgery," I shot back. "So is identity theft. So is fraud. Pick your crime, Leo. You've committed them all." The room exploded. My mother started yelling at Leo. My father started yelling at my mother. Leo started yelling at everyone. I stood there in the center of the chaos I'd created and felt nothing but cold satisfaction. This was the truth. This was what happened when you pulled back the curtain and made people look at the ugliness they'd been pretending didn't exist. I let them scream for exactly 2 minutes. Then I slammed my hand on the table hard enough to crack the silence. "Everyone shut up and listen." They did, maybe because they'd never heard me yell before. Maybe because they finally realized I wasn't the pushover daughter anymore. "I'm not pressing charges," I said. "Not against Mom for forgery, not against Leo for fraud, not against any of you, but here are my terms. You will never ask me for money again. You will never put my name on another account. You will never forge my signature. You will never use me as a backup plan or a safety net or a wallet with a heartbeat. I am done being your ATM." I pulled out the second binder, the instructions. I placed it in front of my father. This is how you set up your own accounts, how you budget, how you pay your own bills like adults. Follow it, or don't. But either way, I'm not doing it for you anymore. I picked up the evidence binder and tucked it under my arm. I'm keeping this. All of it. Every piece of evidence. Every forged signature. Every fraudulent charge. If any of you ever come after me legally or otherwise, it goes to the police. Consider it insurance. Leo found his voice first. You can't do this. You can't just abandon family. I laughed. It was sharp and bitter. I didn't abandon you, Leo. I stopped subsidizing your lifestyle. There's a difference. You're 30 years old. Get a real job. Stop using grandparents you don't even respect as a cash machine. I turned to my mother. You called me useless. You banned me from Thanksgiving. You forged my name. And you never once said thank you for the $73,000 I gave this family over 3 years. $73,000. I could have bought my own house. I could have traveled the world. Instead, I paid for your lives while you treated me like garbage. My father was crying. Actually crying. Issa, we didn't know. I didn't know about the forgery. I didn't know about Leo's emails. I thought we were just behind on bills. You didn't want to know, I said, softer now, but no less firm. Because if you knew, you'd have to face the truth. That you let your wife turn me into a victim. That you let your nephew use me. That you took the easy path and let me pay for it. I walked to the door. My mother's voice stopped me. If you walk out that door, you're not my daughter anymore. I turned back one last time. I stopped being your daughter the minute you called me useless after I paid your mortgage. I'm just making it official. I left. The door closed behind me with a soft click. My phone started ringing before I reached my car. I didn't answer. I drove home in silence, watching the sunset over the city, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Light. Free. Like I'd been carrying a backpack full of stones and finally set it down. That night, I sent one final email to the entire family. The subject line read, "Final notice." The body was 3 sentences. I will not be attending future family events. I will not be providing financial support. I will not be discussing this decision. This matter is closed. Then I blocked everyone except my father. He got one line of communication email only for emergencies that didn't involve money. Everyone else got silence. The next few days were chaos I observed from a distance. Leo's iPad got bricked by T-Mobile after their fraud investigation confirmed he'd been added to the account through forged documents. My parents' electricity got shut off until they paid the deposit and set up a new account. The internet took 3 weeks to reconnect because they couldn't figure out the setup process without calling me, and I didn't answer. My Aunt Brenda sent me a bill for the gas charges I'd disputed. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a note. Handle this. She never contacted me again. The mortgage company contacted my parents directly about the overdue payments once I removed myself as an authorized user. They had to set up a payment plan, provide bank statements, and prove they could afford the house. I heard through a work friend whose cousin knew my aunt that my mother cried through the entire meeting. I felt nothing. Leo's Instagram went quiet for 2 months. When he posted again, it was from a regular apartment, no girlfriend in sight, talking about new beginnings and cutting toxic people from your life. The irony was so thick I could taste it. He'd blocked me, but mutual connections kept me updated. His bicycle business folded. His luxury apartment got downgraded. His life was falling apart, and I hadn't lifted a finger. I'd just stopped catching him when he fell. My father sent one email 3 months later. Isa, I'm sorry. You were right about everything. I've filed for divorce. I'm seeing a therapist. I know I can't fix what we did, but I want you to know I finally see it. I finally see what we took from you. I'm so sorry. I read it twice. I saved it in a folder labeled Closure. I didn't respond. Maybe someday I would. Maybe not. The point wasn't punishment. The point was boundaries. And my boundary was simple. I don't negotiate with people who see me as a resource instead of a human being. 6 months after that Tuesday night, I sat in my apartment drinking tea and looking at my bank account. My savings had grown by $18,000. $18,000 in 6 months just from not paying for a family that didn't appreciate me. I'd booked a trip to Iceland. I'd bought a new laptop. I'd started investing in index funds. I was building the life I should have been building all along. My phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. Lunch tomorrow, I have someone I want you to meet. I smiled. Real friendships. Professional respect. Relationships where I was valued for who I was, not what I could pay for. That was the future I was building. I looked around my minimalist apartment at the life I'd reclaimed and realized something profound. I'd always thought love meant sacrifice, that family meant putting everyone else first, that being a good daughter meant emptying myself to fill everyone else. I was wrong. Love without respect is exploitation. Family without reciprocity is abuse. And being a good daughter to people who treat you like an ATM just makes you a well-trained victim. I'd been banned from Thanksgiving for being useless. Turned out I was the most useful person in that family's life. So useful they couldn't function without me. And the moment I removed my usefulness, their house of cards collapsed completely. The funny thing about cutting off toxic family members is that nobody prepares you for the silence. Not the silence from them that's expected. The silence inside yourself. For 3 years, I'd lived with constant noise. The mental calculator always running. The anxiety about checking my bank account. The dread every time my phone rang. The exhausting mental gymnastics of justifying why it was okay for them to take and take and take while giving nothing back except criticism and contempt. Now there was quiet, real quiet. The kind where you can actually hear your own thoughts instead of the constant static of other people's emergencies. It was unsettling at first. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic, convinced I'd forgotten to pay something, that someone was going to lose their house or their phone or their electricity because of me. Then I'd remember. Not my problem anymore. Not my circus. Not my monkeys. Not my mortgage. The guilt tried to creep in sometimes. Late at night, when I was alone with my thoughts, a small voice would whisper that maybe I'd been too harsh. That maybe they didn't understand what they were doing. That maybe family was supposed to forgive. Then I'd open my laptop and look at the spreadsheets. $73,000 over 3 years, $25,000 on a mortgage for a house I'd never live in, forged signatures, intercepted emails, fraud, identity theft. The numbers didn't lie. They never do. And the numbers told me exactly what I was worth to them. Not as a daughter, as a funding source. Work became my refuge in a way it never had been before. I threw myself into projects with renewed energy. Marisol noticed. She called me into her office one Tuesday, exactly 4 months after the Tuesday that changed everything, and closed the door. I thought I was in trouble. Instead, she offered me a promotion. Senior analyst, 20% raise, corner office. "You've been different these past few months," she said. "Sharper, more focused. Whatever you're doing in your personal life, it's working." I almost laughed. What I was doing in my personal life was nothing, absolutely nothing for anyone except myself. And apparently, that was the secret to success. Stop setting yourself on fire to keep other people warm. Stop paying other people's bills with your own future. Stop shrinking yourself to make room for people who see you as an obstacle instead of a person. The promotion came with a celebration. Marisol took me and 3 other senior analysts to a rooftop bar downtown. We drank expensive wine and ate small plates of food I'd never tried before because I'd always been too busy budgeting for someone else's life to explore my own. One of the analysts, James, asked me about my family. "You never talk about them," he said. "Are you close?" I took a sip of wine and considered my answer. "I used to think I was," I said finally. Turns out I was close to the idea of them. The real them didn't want a daughter. They wanted a checking account that occasionally attended holidays. James laughed like I was joking. Marisol met my eyes across the table. She knew. She'd seen the binders. She'd helped me build my exit strategy. She raised her glass in a silent toast. I raised mine back. To freedom. To boundaries. To finally understanding that the opposite of love isn't hate. It's apathy. And I'd earned my right to stop caring about people who never cared about me. Around month 5, something unexpected happened. My Aunt Brenda showed up at my office building. Security called up to ask if I wanted to see her. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. What could she possibly want that would bring her all the way downtown to my workplace? She looked terrible. Older. Worn down. She'd always been the type to coast through life on other people's generosity, and now that the gravy train had derailed, reality was hitting hard. We sat in the lobby coffee shop. I didn't offer to buy her coffee. She bought her own, fumbling with a card that got declined twice before a third one worked. "Issa," she started, and I could hear the desperation already. "I came to apologize." I said nothing, just waited. "I didn't know," she continued. "I didn't know how much you were paying for. I didn't know Elaine had forged your name. I didn't know Leo was stealing from you. I thought we were all just sharing expenses." "You didn't want to know," I said, echoing what I'd told my father. "Because if you knew, you'd have to feel guilty. And guilt is uncomfortable. Easier to just take what you're given and not ask questions." She flinched. "You're right. I was selfish. I was wrong. I'm sorry." "Okay," I said. I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't say we could rebuild our relationship. I just acknowledged her apology and left it at that. She seemed to expect more. An invitation back into my life, maybe. Permission to stop feeling bad. I gave her neither. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked finally. "To make it right?" "Pay me back," I said simply. "I disputed the gas charges. The credit card company ruled in my favor because you admitted you'd been using my card. They billed you directly. Pay them. That's what you can do to make it right." Her face fell. She'd wanted emotional reconciliation without financial consequence. She wanted to say sorry and have everything go back to normal, but normal was the problem. Normal was me paying while everyone else played. Normal was broken. "I don't have that kind of money," she said softly. "Then I guess you'll need to budget for it," I said. "Set up a payment plan, cut expenses, work overtime, do whatever you have to do, the same things I did while paying for your gas for 2 years. I stood up. "I appreciate the apology, Brenda, but an apology without changed behavior is just manipulation. Show me you've changed by taking responsibility for your own life. Then maybe we can talk." I left her sitting there with her discount coffee and her declined credit cards. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. I felt neutral, detached, like I was watching someone else's family drama instead of living through my own. That detachment was its own kind of healing. The 1-year anniversary of that Tuesday arrived with no fanfare. I took myself to dinner at an expensive restaurant I'd always wanted to try. I ordered the tasting menu. I drank wine that cost more per glass than I used to spend on groceries per week. I sat alone at a table for one and felt absolutely no shame about it. Solitude isn't loneliness when you choose it. It's peace. My phone buzzed during dessert. An email from my father, the first one in months. Subject line: "I understand if you don't read this." I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. "Issa, I don't expect you to respond. I just need you to know that I finally understand what we did to you. The divorce is final. Elaine moved in with Leo. They're still blaming you for everything, still telling people you abandoned the family over a few bills, still playing the victim. I'm done defending them. I'm done defending myself. What we did was financial abuse. It was emotional manipulation. It was wrong. You deserved better. You deserved a father who protected you instead of feeding you to the wolves to save himself. I'm sorry. Not sorry that you cut us off. Sorry that you had to. Sorry that we gave you no other choice. I'm working now, 2 jobs, paying my own bills, living in a studio apartment, learning what you tried to teach us with those binders, how to be an adult, how to take responsibility, how to live within my means. It's hard. It's humbling. It's what I should have been doing all along instead of letting my daughter subsidize my life. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be in your life. I'm just asking that you know that I see it now. I see what you were to us. I see what we took from you, and I see why you had to leave. I hope you're happy, Issa. I hope you're building the life you deserve. I hope you found people who value you for who you are, not what you can give them. You were always the strongest person in this family. We just mistook your strength for weakness because you used it to carry us instead of yourself. That was our failure, not yours. Be well. Be free. Be done with us. You've earned it. Dad." I read it 3 times. I saved it in a folder labeled Progress, right next to the one labeled Closure. I didn't respond. Maybe I would someday. Maybe I wouldn't. But for the first time since that Tuesday night, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. not reconciliation, just acknowledgement that somewhere under all the damage there might have been a real relationship that got buried under debt and dysfunction. But that relationship was in the past. My future was mine alone, and I was going to Iceland in 2 weeks. The trip to Iceland was everything I needed. 10 days of glaciers and waterfalls and northern lights. 10 days of not checking my phone every 5 minutes. 10 days of not calculating how much everything cost and whether I could afford it. Because I could afford it. I had savings again. I had financial security. I had a 401k that wasn't being rated for someone else's emergencies. I had a life that was mine. I met a woman at a hostel in Reykjavik, Sarah. She was Australian traveling alone after leaving her own toxic situation. A boyfriend who'd convinced her to fund his business ideas while he contributed nothing but criticism. We stayed up late drinking wine and sharing war stories about financial abuse, about the guilt of leaving, about the freedom of choosing yourself, about the way people who take from you always act shocked when you stop giving. My ex told me I was selfish, Sarah said, for wanting to save money for myself instead of investing in his dreams. But his dreams always required my money. That's not partnership. That's parasitism. I raised my glass. To being selfish enough to have standards. We toasted. And in that moment, in a hostel in Iceland with a stranger who understood, I realized something profound. I wasn't damaged. I wasn't broken. I wasn't cold or cruel or useless. I was healed. I was whole. I was free. And the people who called me selfish for refusing to be exploited could stay in their dysfunction without me. When I came home, my apartment felt different. Not physically, but energetically. It was mine. All mine. No one else's emergency could touch it. No one else's crisis could penetrate it. I'd built a fortress not just around my finances, but around my entire life. And inside that fortress, I was finally at peace. Marisol asked me to mentor a young analyst who reminded her of me. Bright, capable, always volunteering for extra work. I agreed. The analyst's name was Maya, 24, eager to prove herself. And during our third mentoring session, she mentioned that she was helping her brother with rent because he was between jobs. I felt my internal alarm system activate. How long has he been between jobs? 8 months, she said casually. But he's got some great opportunities coming up. I set down my coffee. Maya, can I tell you a story? I told her everything. Not names, not details that could identify my family, but the patterns, the small requests that became demands. The temporary help that became permanent obligation. The way people who take always have a reason why they need and a reason why you should give. The way financial abuse starts small and grows until you don't even recognize yourself anymore. Maya listened with growing horror. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. I think I'm subsidizing his lifestyle, she said finally. I think he's been lying to me. Then you have a decision to make, I said. You can keep lighting yourself on fire to keep him warm, or you can hand him matches and let him figure out his own heat source. 3 weeks later, Maya came to my office. She looked lighter, younger somehow. I cut him off, she said. He called me every name in the book. My mom is furious with me, but I looked at my bank account and for the first time in 2 years, it's growing instead of shrinking. So thank you for showing me it's possible to choose yourself. I smiled. Thank me by never going back. No matter how much they guilt you, no matter how much they beg. You're not responsible for grown adults who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. She nodded. My mom said I'll regret this someday. You might, I said honestly, but you'll regret losing yourself more. Trust me. That night, I opened my laptop and started writing. Not for work. For me. A guide. A manifesto. A blueprint for people trapped in financial abuse who didn't even realize they were trapped. I called it The Ledger of Lies Recognizing Financial Exploitation in Family Systems. I wrote about red flags, about documentation, about exit strategies, about the guilt and how to manage it, about the fear and how to push through it, about the freedom waiting on the other side. I didn't know what I'd do with it. Publish it online. Share it anonymously. Keep it as a personal journal. It didn't matter. The act of writing it was cathartic. Every word was another brick in the wall between me and the life I'd escaped. Every paragraph was proof that I'd survived, that I'd chosen myself, that I'd won. Now, sitting here 18 months later, I can tell you that cutting off my toxic family was the best decision I ever made. Not because I'm vindictive, not because I don't believe in forgiveness, but because some relationships cost more than they're worth. Some people see you as a resource to be exploited rather than a person to be cherished, and you don't owe anyone access to you just because you share DNA. My bank account is healthy. My mental health is stronger. My boundaries are titanium. I've traveled to 4 countries. I've been promoted twice. I've built real friendships with people who value me for who I am, not what I can provide. I've learned that love shouldn't cost you your savings account, that family shouldn't require financial martyrdom, that being a good person doesn't mean being an available victim. And yes, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd tried to fix it differently. If I'd sat them down and calmly explained instead of coldly executing. If I'd given them chances instead of consequences. But then I remember the forged signatures, the intercepted emails, the text message that called me useless after I'd given them $73,000, and I remember that I didn't destroy our relationship. I just stopped funding the illusion that we had one. So here's my message to anyone listening who sees themselves in my story. You are not a bank. You are not a backup plan. You are not obligated to fund someone else's life at the expense of your own. And if the only way people want you in their life is with your wallet open, they don't want you. They want your money. There's a difference. Learn it. Live it. Let them go. Set the boundaries. Document everything. Execute your exit strategy. And when they call you selfish, cruel, cold, or heartless, remember this. People who respect you don't need to be cut off. They don't need boundaries enforced. They don't push until you break. The only people who get mad when you set boundaries are the people who benefited from you having none. Choose yourself. Always. Every time. Without apology. You deserve to be more than someone else's solution to a problem they created. You deserve to be seen valued and loved for who you are, not what you can give. And if your family can't offer that, then you deserve to build a new family that can. Blood doesn't make you family. Respect does. Reciprocity does. Love does. And if those things are missing, so should you be. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been the family ATM? Have you ever had to choose between your own financial security and someone else's comfort? How did you handle it? Drop your stories in the comments. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. Subscribe because I'm going to keep sharing stories about setting boundaries, choosing yourself, and building the life you deserve instead of funding everyone else's. And share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to close your wallet, even when you can't close your heart. Remember, the best revenge isn't cruelty. It's building a life so good that the people who used you can't touch it. That's the real victory. That's the real freedom. And that's what I'm living now.